On today's starting nine, Jake and Carl preview all the action that's surrounding the trade deadline of Shohei Ohtani getting moved, Juan Soto, some of the other familiar names. Some news is already dropping. It's a huge show. It's the most exciting time of the summer. Let's get into it. Let's have a great starting nine. Action! Welcome back to Starting Nine. It's Carl here in Chicago, Colin Cooper in New York, and across from me, a glazed Jake Arrieta. You look very tan, olive, if I may say.
Very glazed, and in a new setting down here next to the sauna. I figured it'd be a good place to set up and do the show.
Is it dry heat? The sauna's dry, right?
It's got both. Yeah, it's got the traditional heat. It's got the infrared. So typically you crank it up. Yeah, turn it on, just on the phone. Get it to 194. Get some water on the rocks, and then fire up the infrared. The infrared's nice. It kind of heats you from the inside out. So you'll be in there for 10 minutes, you're like, hey, this shit ain't hot. And then 5 minutes later, you're just oozing toxins. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, a guy like me needs that. I struggle with the relationship between the steam in the sauna and the shower after I get done playing around the golf.
I'm not a steam fan.
Why?
I'm not a big. I don't mind the steam room, but I feel like it chokes you up. You can't breathe as well in there. I prefer the sauna. But man, we had a nice steam room in Chicago that we used. Like Lackey, Lester, myself, Rossi. We'd sit in there before the shower and just clean ourselves out. But then COVID screwed that up. COVID. I think it manifests in the steam room, so we weren't allowed to use that, unfortunately. But yeah, if I had to pick one or the other, I like the saunas. I'm gonna go with the sauna.
I'll say steam being an institutional casualty of COVID. Nobody's talking about that. Here's big news. We should get into this. This is the trade deadline episode. It's just breaking right now. This is going to happen throughout the show. We're going to give you guys our best effort to project what's going to be going on around the trade deadline. React to some stuff. Josh Hader's going over to just got announced. Josh Hader from the Milwaukee Brewers getting moved to the Padres. Your thoughts?
Well, they have to make moves to make a statement and try and compete with the Dodgers and try and fight off the Giants. There's no way around it. I also like. Could you imagine if Juan Soto went to the Padres? That's just, they're finally making the ultimate statement. Like we're tired of being second fiddle to the Dodgers. We're going to go out, we're going to bring these guys in, and now we're going to be the best team in the NL West. And obviously they would still have to show it, but as we're talking about this right now, we just saw the breaking news, Hader going from Milwaukee to the Padres. That's an enormous statement, and I'm really glad to see that.
Yeah, it's kind of an insane trade to me because the Brewers are competing to win their division. Now, do they smell Juan Soto or someone or Ohtani coming to the Cardinals? I saw a deal that what would it look like for Juan Soto to go to the Padres? They said C.J. Abrams, who's like a top middle infield young player that should become somebody big, and then they said Mackenzie Gore, the left-handed pitcher, and then they said the number 1, 3, and 4 prospects in the organization. Those 5, they said if those 5 were on the table, Mike Rizzo would probably make that deal. The Padres, but going back to the Padres and Hader, don't want to bury the lead here. That just crazy the Brewers would get rid of.
Well, it's nuts too because they're 3 games up in the division. So the guys that they got left-handed closer Taylor Rogers, lefty pitching prospect Robert Gasser, outfield Esteury Ruiz, and right-hander Dinelson Lamet. So Lamet's a nice arm. Taylor Rogers is a nice arm. So I mean, I don't think they would have done this deal if they didn't believe that they can bring a couple of these guys in, and you can't replace exactly what Hader would do, but I'm assuming they feel like these guys can get close, or else they wouldn't have made this sort of move. It's like we said, it's not a move you expected from a team that's in the position the Brewers are in, and to give up a guy like Josh Hader, it's crazy. But I think the trade looks okay.
Yeah, and I don't want to discount the fact that the Brewers, developed Hader, and you look up and down their rotation, their arms, the guys they just run out there, it seems like almost everybody's homegrown. So if you're going to get rid of Hader, he's got a ton of miles on him from a high leverage standpoint, especially the last couple of years. So it just seems like to your point, you're making a lot of great points because I'm sitting here as a fan that just watched Josh Hader. Every time he comes in, he just mows dudes down. And so
Virtually
credit to the
unhittable.
Brewers. If they think they're getting ahead of this, like it takes balls in the front office. And I would say like right now,
Yes.
we're in this moment for trade deadline. The craziest trade of my lifetime would be Nomar coming to the Cubs. It's like holy fuck. Theo Epstein in his like first year, or it was like his second year. Yeah, it was his second full season as a GM of the Dodgers, and he gets rid of like one of the most beloved guys. It takes balls. I don't think people, give these GMs some credit to stand there and get rid of a guy like Josh Hader who's done nothing but dominate for them.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. I mean, at least they got Taylor Rogers. I mean, he's having. I mean, he's got a 4.3. He's finished 35 games. I mean, he's not pitching terribly. And obviously, as a reliever, you have a couple games, and that could overinflate the numbers. So it might not look good until you kind of get into it. But then, you're getting a couple major league guys. It's not like these are prospects. What do you think Hader's reaction was? Do you think he ever thought this might happen, especially when they're leading the Central and he's doing what he's doing? I assume he was stunned. And never saw it coming. But hey, you're going to. I mean, you're not going to a first place team, but you're going to a team that is legit. You're going to San Diego, which is an amazing place to play. And then, hey, they just signed Joe Musgrove to a $100 million 5-year deal. So the things are rolling there. Things are rolling. So it's not, it could be a much worse situation. I'm sure Hader will be excited. His teammates obviously are going to be incredibly excited to have him come in and pitch in that ninth inning for him. Basically just one of the most shutdown closers that has ever pitched.
Yeah, I want to get Musgrove getting the $100 million from the Padres is
it's a good
very
deal for both
indicative
sides.
where they're going.
Yeah.
I am curious though, just last thing on my mind about this Hader stuff. Tell me I'm overreacting as a fan here, but like I see that I'm like, does Craig Counsell want to get rid of this? Like, did the Brewers? Is there something about Josh Hader where they're like, because to your point, Taylor Rogers is a high strikeout left-handed pitcher. The capital that comes with him, the more I think about this, like, okay, this definitely makes sense for the Brewers. Like, they could make out here where this is way beneficial in the long run, especially if Hader has a couple Dodgers. Is there any reason though, as a fan, you could sit here and be like, well, obviously Craig Counsell or the Brewers, like, didn't like they wanted to get rid of Hader?
I don't know a reason why they would want to get rid of Hader. Look, I mean, maybe there's something behind the scenes, but I think we're probably trying to dig too much into that. When you have a guy who's as dominant as Hader, or any, just fill in the blank with somebody who's at that level, I mean, you're willing to put up with certain things for performance. You just are. If he was underperforming and if there were issues there, very easy to get rid of him. I just think maybe they see something in Rogers. They see something in Lamet. Lamet's a really nice arm. So this trade could fill a couple needs for him, and they're giving up only one guy, but that guy is Josh Hader. So again, we talk about this at length. Being in those rooms and being one of those upper echelon decision makers is not an easy thing to do. So who knows, man? I don't think there's issues there. I just think that they thought this trade could make their team better.
It's a good seat. Now thank you for saying that, because I think there are people that are going to see this and be like, well, we dug up Josh Hader's past. We know his rep. It's like, no, at the end of the day, I think a lot of this clubhouse mumbo jumbo, he's a clubhouse guy. Like, that stuff matters, but like, Josh Hader has struck out multiple people in 23 of his 37 appearances this year. But so many of those have come with absolutely no runs in high leverage situations. I don't think even if you want to speculate, good bet, it doesn't matter. To your point, it's like, these are professionals. This is the best of the best. You're dominant. You're a stud. You're a generational talent. And if he stays on this path, it's very hard for relievers to even get into like a Cooperstown conversation. But he's he's averaging 15.7 strikeouts per 9 innings this year. I mean, just like mind-boggling stuff. If he were to just continue this and have one of those Kimbrel type, like, long-term durable careers as a closer, he's already on his way. Like, we are talking about one of the best closers.
Sure, yeah. Hader's Kimbrel's a bona. He's a Hall of Famer, no doubt Hall of Famer. If Hader can do what he's done even close to what he's done for the next 3, 4 years, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer as well. I mean, he's got just shy of 5 years of service time. If he gets to 8 years of service time and pitches anywhere near that, what you said, 15 strikeouts per 9 innings,
Yeah.
he's a Hall of Famer. There's no question about it. No question about it.
I'm not disrespecting legends and stuff like that and some of the great closers. It's like I know Josh Hader too, his ERA's down. Like you could look at this and be like, well, he's trending in the other way. But just from what I've seen and from him in the division, and again, he's 28. We're saying like, yeah, to your point, if he puts up like 8-9 years of full service time and he's striking out 15, 16 guys per 9 innings, it's, and I am curious, I guess as we move into this like Musgrove conversation, like, if you're Joe Musgrove, you're a starting pitcher, what does it do mentally for your next start, knowing the Padres are like, here's 5 and 20? Like, because I'm sure that's something as a pitcher, like, dude, I'm pitching well. I want to get extended. I don't want to take this to free agency. Or like, what do you think is going through Joe Musgrove's mind as he's getting this deal?
Well, Joe, he's a simple dude. He's laid back. I mean, we talked to him at the All-Star game. I got to know Joe quite a bit last year in my short time in San Diego. I mean, Joe, he's not a flashy guy. He doesn't need much. I mean, the dude loves to drink coffee. He makes his own coffee next to his locker in the clubhouse. He's riding his skateboards, his longboards, like he's surfing. He's chilling at the beach. But I also don't think that he was scared to take it free agency whatsoever. This guy he's one of the most quietly confident dudes in baseball. I just think that it was a situation where the front office came to him or to his advisors, his agent, and said, "Hey, let's get a deal done." And the 5-year $100, I think it's a fair deal for both sides. I think he's worth way more than that. But now he's happy. He's got that guaranteed money, and not that he was going out there pitching worried about making. He's already rich, and now he's very, very wealthy. So I love to see it. He fits extremely well in San Diego. He loves it there. The organization and the fans love him there. So just an all-around great deal.
Dude, Joe Musgrove, I didn't know this until we started doing this show, the volume of like laid back, cool starting pitchers. I always just assumed it was either like more of like the lackey kind of like, F you, I'm just taking the ball and shoving it type, or like the salty veterans, or then obviously like the hyper competitive guys like you. But I'm not saying Joe Musgrove and Zach Gallen and Kevin Gossman aren't hyper competitive, but meeting him in the red carpet, like you could tell that dude just laid back, chill, like to your point, the longboards. Like I want to validate that take as somebody who met him casually. Like that guy, he's just so to take a word from the West Coast, chill. Yeah,
he's just a good man. But he goes to that place when he competes. He's like I said, he's got that quiet confidence. Borderline. I think there's some cockiness in there, but it's deserved. Like it's you have to earn that. You have to earn that sort of persona, and he definitely has. So, and you have to know you're good at this level, and especially at a level like he's pitching at. And I think there's more room for him to grow and continue to get even better. I think you saw the stature and the size of the guy. I'm a big dude, and he's an inch and a half taller than me. His broad shoulders. He's just one of those guys that was born to be a starting pitcher. And from the demeanor and the mindset as a starting pitcher, I mean, we're sitting in the dugout 4 out of 5 days, and we're working out, and we're just that kind of breeds that kind of chill vibe. Because if you're not able to get into that mindset, I mean, you'll drive yourself nuts just watching 4 out of 5 baseball games that you don't even get to partake in. So I think that's one of the reasons you see so many guys that are chill is because it fits our job description.
Yeah, and good on you. You must be inside my head, because the last thing I want to say about Joe Musgrove, like a big takeaway I had from him is just physically his frame. If you were investing 5 years into a pitcher, I'd want them to look like Joe Musgrove. And don't take this, nothing against guys that carry a little bit more muscle or that are like, just different body types, but like the way the 6'5" and the 230 come together for him, it's lean, but it's powerful. It's like the type of frame that can carry a load and put up 170, 180 innings, which is now becoming
every year.
Like the big threshold. Yeah,
every year. And he's the kind of body type that could look like he's kind of a Kyle Farnsworth body type. Like if he wanted to, if he did a different job, like if he wanted to be an Olympic lifter, or well, he's probably too tall for that. But if he wanted to be a bodybuilder, he could be 6'5", 260, 270, and just 5% body fat. Like he has the physique to do whatever he wants to do with it. He just so happens to be so gifted as a starting pitcher that he tailors his training and his preparation physically to look the way he does to perform. Does that make sense? Like while I pitched, I've always been in good shape, but I was never looking to put on 5-10 pounds of muscle mass because I knew that would restrict my frame and my mobility and my ability to execute pitches and be durable. But now, like I can lift as much weight as I want. I'm not trying to set any weightlifting records, but I do train a little bit differently now. So it's interesting to see how guys can physically manipulate their body based on what their goals are. And, I've seen Joe work day in, day out. The guy works like Aaron Nola. And Aaron Nola, Joe Musgrove are two of the hardest working guys in the league. And the Padres know that, and that's why they signed him to this nice 5-year deal.
Man, if you're a Padres fan, and we've talked about this in other episodes, especially this time of the year, like this is very exciting. You are lucky because your team is making moves to try and put you guys in a position, like you say. Obviously, the Giants, there's some speculation, we can get into this in a second, that they're moving Rodon. Or you want to be able to take advantage. You sense there's some blood in the water in the West, and you want to get one of these 3 wild card spots with momentum and not kind of like – you don't want to be like squeaking your way into the playoffs. You want to be going to the playoffs with momentum. So even if you're not going to win the division, like credit to the Padres for making these moves. And there's some other teams out there that are trying to make these moves. Let's talk for a second about Shohei Ohtani. I saw that he was rumored to be going to, someone said a report, sincerely credited report by John Heyman, that the White Sox put a package in for Ohtani. And as a guy in Chicago who knows the White Sox, like, to me, that's all smoke and mirrors because the White Sox are always saying, like, oh, yeah, we made a bid for Machado. We made a bid for Bryce Harper. We made a bid for all these guys. Like, here's just another time where the White Sox just would be like, hey, guys, we tried. We put a bid together for Ohtani. I guess from an Ohtani standpoint, do you think he's moving or what?
I just can't fathom the idea of moving maybe one of the greatest baseball players to ever put on a uniform, the greatest two-way player to ever play the game. And you're talking about getting rid of him. So you're going to give up a guy who can perform at his level on both sides, on the mound and at the plate, to get what? A team's 4 top prospects? 2 might pan out, 2 might not play in the big leagues at all. And then one of those guys might be, that pans out. One might be an average major league player. One might be slightly above average. Is that, at the end of the day, is that really going to be a good trade? You see what I'm saying? Like, are you gonna get the type of performance that you can get from Ohtani? And is that trade going to? Because you're not getting 4 or 5 bona fide major league players if you're trading Ohtani. So you're hoping that 3 or 4, however many guys, you're hoping that all of them pan out. But then, are you going to get that level of production that Ohtani could give you in multiple spots in the order? Like, I just don't see it. It doesn't make sense to me. I just think it's an embarrassing situation for that organization to be in. I mean, could you see another team talking about trading a guy like Ohtani?
It's like when A-Rod was with the Dodgers, or with the Rangers. In those 3 years when he was with the Rangers and he's win MVPs on teams that win 75 games, and when they made that trade for him to New York to Soriano, you've never just seen a white flag get waved faster for an organization. And the Rangers ended up coming back from it 6-7 years later, make it to a World Series. They're, a miraculous performance from David Freese away from being able to look back and be like, hey, we screwed up on a $500 million or $250 million contract and we got a World Series a little bit more than half a decade later. That to me is like a full grade below this Ohtani stuff. Now, the news that Trout's back, I don't know what that does to the Angels front office, but I also know the Angels front office is not trusted by the owner. And a bigger point here is there's only a handful of guys in baseball that I would feel comfortable as an owner being like, yeah, you can go trade Ohtani. There's like a handful of guys, and like I don't even know if I'd put Theo Epstein in that group. It's like Andrew Friedman from the Dodgers. Like honestly,
what would you need in return for Ohtani? I would say it has to be like 2 legit major league players and like 4 elite prospects, because you can't just get prospects. Because if say a couple of them get hurt, or like I said, if none of them fucking make it to the big leagues or are sustainable big league players, you have to have some major league ready guys, and I'm sure that there would be. But again, like this is, it feels like a bad dream that we're even discussing it. And this game also is about generating revenue and making a shit ton of money, and Ohtani does that for that organization. So are you willing to give that up as well? I mean, look, obviously winning is most important. Well, for most owners, then you have owners that just want to make a little bit of profit at the end of the year. So it depends on what their goals are. But man,
I'll tell you what
it's laughable. It's just laughable to me.
For Ohtani, I would need. I can't really use the Cubs as a basis, but I can go to the White Sox and say, like, I would need.
The Cubs don't have anything
Cease.
to trade to give them.
Yeah, I would need Dylan Cease. I'd need Luis Robert, and then I would need like the 5 best prospects in the organization.
I was gonna say you need an ace. You need a legitimate all-star type of position player, and then prospects.
So I just gave you like 30 years of control of players for like a season and a half of Shohei Ohtani. But now the Angels, now this is my take on this.
But are the White Sox even in position? Are the White Sox in position to, like, are they going to make the postseason? Are they?
They're climbing and fighting, and they can get, like, Lance Lynn hasn't pitched well at all. Like, Lance Lynn has pitched in like the bottom 5%. So like once he gets going, they'll be good. And I'm just using them as a basis because they had just been reported to be in for Ohtani. There's obviously, we can talk Cardinals too. The Cardinals have a number of young guys that are up making an impact now in the big leagues, and they always reload that system. Like if you're a Cardinals minor league player, you are major league ready as a prospect. They really don't miss on their guys. So like if I was trading Ohtani, I would want to be doing business with the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean the Cardinals, one of those organizations, they do it every year. The Giants are kind of like that too, even though, I mean, they're stuck behind, the Dodgers and now the Padres. I just, like we've talked about, like last show, I love to see these teams that are still fighting for these wild cards. I really, really love that. Right? So,
Cleveland.
It pisses me off talking about the Ohtani thing. It just pisses me off.
Well, I would be, it's cool because you're a player and you see it from the player side of, like, what more do we have to do, right? Like, this guy's
you have the 2 best players on the
everything.
planet, and we can't figure it out. The Angels they need 2 legit arms, because look, the best teams in baseball, they have like 2 aces. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to make a deep run in October or even have a shot, you need 2 aces, or you need a 1A and a guy who he's an elite 2, maybe not an ace, but you got to have it. You just can't rely on 5 threes and a 4 in there. You just can't. You can't win that way. You can't have 5 guys that have a 4 ERA and expect to make any sort of run in the postseason.
Let's stay in the West. I agree with you. I like that take. Let's stay in the West and then progressively move ourselves across the country. I just have like a couple takes left on the West here.
Let's go Pacific Northwest.
Okay. Did you see fuck, I know this is the trade deadline show, but if there's ever a time to take a break from trade deadline talk, it's about fucking throwing up and in. Did you see the Mariners and the Astros conflict? Altuve gets drilled first pitch after J-Rod swings and like hurts his hand. I love J-Rod. We brought up like what would it take for Ohtani? Like that was the first name that popped in my head. Like if I was trading Shohei Ohtani, I'd be like, yeah, I want J-Rod. I want like somebody where you're like, I'm getting 6 freaking years out of this guy. Sad he's hurt, but kind of cool that Kirby from the Mariners stepped up first pitch of the game, drilled Altuve, little up and in. Mm-hmm. Don't like to see that, but the beef is there, man. The Mariners and Astros beef is there, and the Mariners have been drilled, I think, 14 times this year by the Astros. The Astros have only been drilled like 6 or 7. So there is some clear bad blood here.
Yeah, well, a couple things. So, yeah, you don't want to see Julio hurt. That sucks. Trading, I don't think the Mariners would trade Julio for Ohtani. I don't think I would. I just don't know if I would trade him. I really don't. I think he's going to be that good. And you just brought in Luis Castillo. It makes you instantly better. Absolutely loved that move for multiple reasons. You make your organization better, and you get a guy like Luis Castillo out of Cincinnati. It's just nice to see that because I think that arm is too good to be there with the type of roster that they currently have in Cincinnati. Who knows when they'll be good?
Do you know anything about Luis Castillo? Is he like a gangster? Is he just like is he a sweet dude? Is he like swaggy? Is he kind of like, is he quiet? Do you know anything? Or like, will he chirp you guys?
I don't know him much. No, I've never seen any chirping really from him. Seems like a good dude. Seems pretty chill. He's got devastating stuff. So I've compared his stuff to like Pedro Martinez before, and I'm sure a lot of other guys have as well. So I really like that move. And then with, Kirby Yates throwing Altuve, totally fine with that. But, man, when you start getting up and in around guys' heads, I think you should just be allowed to fight it out if that's what's going to happen. It's just too dangerous. When you got a guy throwing at velocity, up and around your head, I have to fight you. I have to fight you. It's kind of like what was the movie with Will Ferrell, Zach Galifianakis, where they're running for like governor or whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, well, you broke the rules. You do that, I fuck your wife. So, like, if you throw up and in, you're coming around my head, like, we got to fight.
It's like the first time that movie's ever been referenced in like some sort of pop culture.
That's the only
so
part that I
you,
remember.
Dude.
Only part I remember.
I'm like in on the Mariners, and I think there's like this childhood nostalgia thing that just like,
for me
you just
too.
see the Mariners get good, you're like, oh great, they're back.
Yeah, for me too. I mean, I was a diehard Rangers fan, but I love the Mariners as well. I know that that's kind of uncommon for people who are like, their favorite team, and then they like another team that's in the same division. But it was just about the guys on the team for me, and I think you were the same way. Like, how do you not like Jay Buhner, Edgar Martinez, King Griffey Jr., the big unit, like just easy team to like?
Yeah. Meanwhile, Jamie Moyer's cooking up 84-mile-an-hour two-seamers, just, gorgeous. All right, West, couple other, just wrap on this Altuve thing, I sincerely think Altuve is going to win people back over if he continues to take it the way he did. He gets drilled up around. He didn't say shit, dude. He drops a bat. He looked back in the dugout, did a little bit like, I'm okay. They score runs. The more the Astros compete, like, the more he gets shit on nationally, the more I'm personally inclined, like, over time. Not right now. I still think he's a scumbag. But over time, like, he can win me over if he continues to act like this, as people are like, well, good. Who cares if Altuve gets drilled? It's like, whoa. Like, we're still talking about a like foundational player.
It's easy for people
decade.
to say that, though. It's easy for people to say that, especially if you haven't had to stand in the box and see what that's like. But there's always going to be people who will never forgive, the Astros for what happened. And I can side with that a little bit, because my whole take on that situation was, if I was a player in that clubhouse, how would I be okay with letting that continue? And the fact that they're naive enough to think that that's not going to get out. I mean, a player is going to get traded, just like happened. Like, what's his name? Fires went to Oakland and then starts chirping about it. Like, come on, guys. Like, no, it's boys club, I guess, but someone's going to talk. Like, you guys are. It's absurd to think that those guys in there are like, oh no, the secret's safe with us. No, shit's going to get aired out.
Yeah, and credit to the young Astros that inherited this mess. Yordan Alvarez, Jeremy Pena, obviously this year stepped up just awesome. Kyle Tucker, guys that have nothing to do with any of this stuff and are still carrying that team, and Dusty Baker too. We're going to wrap quick on West because I want to go back to Dusty Baker's original stomping grounds for me when he was a manager with the Giants. And there is rumors that Jock and Rodon could get moved at the trade deadline while the Giants are still interested in competing for a wild card because they think that the return on Rodon is going to be so significant because there's such demand for left-handed starting pitching. So they're like, fuck it, you guys can take him, and then we'll just work with our bullpen and drop down to like whatever, our 4 starters or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea to hear the offers and see if there's something really out there that's worth accepting for Rodon and Jock. We know the way Jock can perform in the postseason. And yeah, they'll still compete. I feel like the Giants are always going to compete. Whether they make it into a wild card or not will remain to be seen. We'll see what they could potentially get for 2 guys like that. So yeah, you want to portray to your fan base that you're still going to compete, but hey, this is an opportunity for us to make these kind of moves, get rid of these 2 guys, and get a boatload of shit back for them, and still be in a position to fight for a wild card spot.
And hopefully, wherever Jock goes, if you want to win a World Series and you have to add like a lefty, like lefty 4th outfielder bat or like a, somebody who can mash fastballs, isn't he considered like in the upper echelon of guys that can catch?
They can handle velocity, yeah, and especially on the inside part of the plate. Yeah, he does a really, really good job of pulling his hands inside. And I mean, we've seen him launch balls pull side that are 3, 4, 5 inches in off the plate. So guys that can do that can really handle velocity. I would assume we can find the number somewhere, but I would assume he's at the top of the charts as far as guys that can barrel high velocity. I don't even know where the hell you would look for that. But yeah, Jock's sick. Jock's sick. And he's one of the best shit talkers of all time.
Do you is there something that stands out though when you say that where you're like, man, I can't believe he did that? Or like,
I mean, just little shit. Like he'd walk into the clubhouse and like say Rizzo's just sitting in his chair, just kind of, still in his street clothes, like on his phone or whatever, hanging out, and he'd just be like, Riz, fuck off, man, like, or go fuck yourself. just random, like, hey, like that's like a good morning or whatever. Yeah, that's kind of his skit. It's something that I love.
Like a JV high school football coach, he's like, "What's up, pussies?"
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So just on that note, I had to do this coaching certification for tackle football. You got to do it every year. And the first section is about like sexual abuse and like physical and verbal abuse. And they're going on and on about the types of coaches and negative coaches and character traits that coaches have. And it's funny you mentioned the high school coach because we all had a coach like that. That was, they would talk shit to you. They would try and, kind of make you feel uncomfortable. So I'm going to do my best not to do that to our kids.
Those guys are formidable, or like those. They're all not all negative though. Like those experiences aren't great, but like in the long run, I've had plenty of guys that just shit all over me. Just loved giving me grief.
It's got to be tough love. You have to, if you don't have thick skin, you have to learn how to develop that at some point in your athletics career. Because if you can't learn it, and this is what I tell kids all the time, if you can't take a little, tough criticism now, like it's going to happen to you when you're 13 or 14 as you get into high school. So you need to learn how to deal with that and know that it's coming from a good place and just accept it, right? There's a difference between that sort of constructive criticism that comes from a place, a positive place, and then somebody just burying you all the time, kind of, stripping you of your confidence. And that's, obviously not what coaches are supposed to do, but they are supposed to be tough on their kids.
Hey, speaking of coaches and managers and stuff, here, let's get to the central. I'm not expecting that you've talked to David Ross in the last 24 hours, but do you think he's relieved that he's moving toward a spot of relief that the controversy's over, or do you think there's fire in him that just the Cubs, for instance, just traded Scott Efros, who's an effective rookie reliever, an Indiana guy, homegrown kid that they've got to the point where he worked tirelessly during the COVID year said if it weren't for the COVID break, he wouldn't be in the big leagues because he took that time away from professional baseball to just like train on his spin and just do stuff that traditionally you couldn't do for an extended period of time. You know, it's like 5-6 months where he's just like working on his spin rate and stuff for a sinker. Finally finds his slot, finds his release point. He gets a chance now that the Cubs are rebuilding. You almost, as a fan, you say, listen, this is exactly what we don't want to rebuild, but if you're going to rebuild, one of the benefits is guys like Scott Efros, guys that are homegrown players can emerge, and then you can kind of like, hey, I'll remember Scott Efros the way I remember Justin Grimm on that championship team because I watched Justin Grimm for 4 years go out there and just like wear shitty teams and bad games and stuff. And those are examples. So now you see the Cubs trade Scott Efros, and it's Happ and Contreras are coming. And Scott Efros is a name National Baseball fans aren't really going to click with or register. But to me, it's like the small thing that says a much bigger picture of like the Cubs are really full rebuild mode. And it just hurts to see because it's like, how could you not want a guy like this around the clubhouse for the next 4 or 5 years? League minimum ground ball machine.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously the Yankees wanted to bring him in because he can fill a need. I don't know, man. Look, they're in rebuild mode, but I think everybody's on the table. I mean, if we're talking about trading Shohei Ohtani, anybody can get traded. And I think that the Cubs need to get rid of David Robertson also. I think that I'm kind of surprised he hasn't been moved already. I would assume that a trade for him will be made by the deadline tomorrow. I hope there is a trade for him because he's a guy that can go into the back of the end of the bullpen and get enormous outs in the postseason. The guy's done it, multiple years with the Yankees. His story is pretty incredible. He had injury after injury in Philly. We shared time there together, and now he's back performing incredibly well. So David Robertson needs to be shipped as well.
Can we talk about David Robertson's calves for a second? You don't see a lot of relievers that wear their pants up. The guy's legs are sculpted. He looks like he's smuggling a couple of high school footballs down his socks.
Yeah, him and Real Muto have the best calves in baseball. And you're right. If you're going to wear your pants up, you need to be able to show some nice leg meat, and he definitely does that. I mean, it's just the leg meat is just off the charts.
Like the fact that he's known as a guy with good leg meat, I think is a pretty cool reputation to have around baseball. Like, have you really honed in on his calves? And shout out to him because a lot of that's God given, but you also have to a lot of it's maintenance too. You have good calves, not in like an obnoxious sizing way, like more of like an athletic shape. But there's some guys walking around with jumbos.
It's a genetic gift. It's not like he's not in there doing calf raises, right? Like David Robertson works hard, but I'm telling you, he's not in there. He's not in the calf machine. So it's a genetic gift. Real Mutos are too, I believe, but he's a catcher, so it seems a little bit more appropriate for the leg meat from the knee down to be on a guy like that. Funny thing about David Robertson is, he would travel with like a trigger point and mobility like bag, and I kind of do the same thing. There's like a little like foam roller in there. There's these like two balls that are connected together that you can kind of roll up and down your back. He's got a lacrosse ball, and he would just bring that bag to my room, like in the hotel at night, and we just sit there and we just like roll out and just kind of get mobile together and just enjoy doing that. It's more guys need to have a mobility bag and a trigger point bag. I learned that from David Robertson.
Speaking of mobility, flexibility, the Cardinals have all the ability, flexibility to make some moves right now. And I just say from like we got into the Brewers standpoint a little bit. They're obviously in first place, but if you're the Cardinals and you've got Nolan Arenado and Goldschmidt at the corners, you've got leadership obviously up and down that clubhouse. Like they're really at one point you just kind of feel like, man, if we get the right guy, we'd be unstoppable, right? They feel like to me feel like they're one piece away.
Yeah, I mean they got JoJo Romero from the Phillies, which is a nice left-handed arm. But you mentioned leadership. It's like that entire team. They're all leaders, and it's like it's a Cardinal way. Whatever it is, I mean they got something in the water there, but they develop well, and it's not just about performing on the field. Like these guys they're all high character guys, in case in point is like guys like Goldschmidt. Like, has there ever been a bad word, uttered about Paul Goldschmidt? He's just an all-American dude.
Maybe some of his buddies are like, we don't talk to him that much because all he does is hit off a tee. Like, we can't get him out to Buffalo Wild Wings with us anymore. Like, that's the only mean thing you could probably say about Goldschmidt is he just works relentlessly on his swing.
Well, to me, I don't know Goldschmidt well. He's one of my favorite players. Cooper and I pulled what was it? We pulled like a signed Goldschmidt with another player. It might have been Arenado. So such a cool card, but he seems to me like kind of like an Adam Wainwright guy who's all about his craft and all about his family. I saw him at the All-Star game, and I believe he was there with one or multiple of his kids. He's a dude that's easy to root for, and his skill set speaks for itself. I mean, he's a unit. Have you ever stood next to Paul?
I haven't. The way he fills out a uniform, I think, is unique. Like,
Yes.
Obviously, first basemen are all big, but I think that he's so athletic looking. He looks like an H-back or something.
Another guy who's built just in a lab to play baseball. He's got the catfish bellies. I mean, his forearms are enormous. He might be.
Wait,
you never heard of a catfish bellies? Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Check his pipes. Check his pipes next time you see him. I would assume he's about on par. He might not be quite as tall as Musgrove, but very similar build.
I'm going to be calling.
You know who's got big forearms too, and he never works out, is Kev Millar. Millar's got some nice bellies, and he doesn't work out, and they're rock hard. Harder than mine, rock hard.
Would he sit and play with a bucket of rice? I had a guy like that, a junior college guy on our summer.
I think he had one of
those
deals, the little grip deal. Mm-hmm. I think he'd just sit at his locker and just do that. I'm gonna ask him.
We got to get.
We got some big ones here, dude. Where do you want to go? Because I love the Yankees getting Andrew Benintendi from the Royals.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the Yankees yet. Let's do that. I was gonna say. I am surprised I haven't heard much about the Twins or the Guardians.
Nothing.
Like the AL Central is almost too competitive. Now the White Sox, I would say they do a good job with leaks, so you don't hear much from them. But I'm just surprised with the Guardians and the Twins. It's like the Guardians have a tough decision because they could sell a couple pieces for big. But you could also add.
Who in particular?
I don't want to get crazy, but if you're gonna sell everything, why would you not take
getting
calls
rid of Bieber?
I mean, why wouldn't you take? I mean, obviously, Bieber's on the list, but this is gonna sound crazy, but if you're not gonna buy this year, why wouldn't you at least take calls on Jose Ramirez and see what he's worth?
Yeah.
Because he's on a very friendly deal.
I mean, I don't think they do anything. They're still. What are they? There's 65 games or so left.
I'm such an idiot.
Something like that. You can't.
Indians. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm always going to call them the Indians, and it's just not disrespectful. I just love. It's just they're the Indians to me too. But I mean, they're a game out of first place, so I think it would be foolish to do anything in that. We talked about the White Sox. They're 2 games out. You can't. You got to be buyers. You have to be buyers.
So
or at least not, or at least don't sell.
How about this? Between these 3 teams in the AL Central, between the Guardians, the White Sox, and the Twins, whoever buys out of that group whoever buys the most is going to have the advantage, obviously, I think.
Well, it depends on what you buy, too.
Well, you can't sit on your you can't sit on your heels if you're the Guardians and the Twins. Somebody's got to make a move here. It'd be ridiculous if they went through the trade deadline and the most that happened was we added a lefty.
Well, it won't surprise me when we're doing our show tomorrow that we have another 5 or 6, nice trades to talk about. And I would assume that the Guardians and the Twins and potentially the White Sox are a big part of those trades. You agree with that?
Yeah, I do. We got 29 hours left in the deadline at the point of this conversation. I'm getting a little. I just haven't heard the traction, but let's get to the traction. Let's go out to New York. You brought up Benintendi.
Well, we had one more. Let me.
I
got to talk to you about. So this is with the Rockies. So when I saw that the Rockies are in the process of extending Daniel Bard, And what are they doing? Why are you not trading Daniel Bard? I mean, he's having a phenomenal year. I mean, his rebound from being out of the league for 6 or 7 years, and he struggled a little bit, but now he's just his fastball sits at 98, reaches triple digits. He's a veteran guy. He can get big outs for a team at the back end of the bullpen. It's like with David Robertson. What are you extending him for? Like I see if you're a playoff contending team, and I saw that the owner or the GM made comments that he foresees them being competitive next season. Like, bullshit, man. Like, this team has been on the verge of like maybe competing forever. So I just don't understand the move to extend Daniel Bard. I mean, I'm happy for him that he's getting paid, but why aren't you trading him?
Yeah, so I've just got like a weird vibe on ownership with the Rockies. It seems like it's a desperate move. Seems like somebody who's taken a beating over trading Nolan Arenado, signing Chris Bryant. Like, I mean, just in that little conversation, I shouldn't say, in the conversation we had with Charlie Backman, in the like brief time we talked about Nolan Arenado, I mean, it's if you can't build a relationship with an absolute gamer like that, like Nolan Arenado's not a bad guy at all. If anything, he's too competitive. If anything,
if he said something of arrogance or this is just speculation. I don't even know what it is, and I wouldn't care if he even told me to fuck off. Like, as a GM, he is Nolan Arenado, and you just signed him for, was it 13? How many years was it? 10, 11, 12, 13 years, whatever it was. Like, man, put your pride aside and just enjoy having that player that you signed. And, it's easier said than done, and maybe it was the right move for the organization. I doubt it. It was obviously the right move for the St. Louis Cardinals. But I don't know, man. I think that sometimes there's too much of an ego gets in the way, sometimes on the player side, sometimes on the front office's side. Like, put all that past you and just enjoy having the type of player that you're lucky to have.
So, to that point, I want to say congratulations to Daniel Bard. It is so far above me.
It's an amazing story.
Amazing. It is, if you're just looking from a team perspective, it is very, very surprising. And you just wonder, like, what impact has Daniel Bard had? Are they looking at him? Has he really, like, come in and helped other people? I don't really buy into that. The more we do the show, the more I'm, like, less into, like, oh, well, that guy's going to sit there and teach so-and-so. But
there is something to mentorship, sure. But you can get that from so many different places. I mean, there are mentors all around the game. I mean, you look at a guy, a good friend of mine like Tommy LaStella, who came from a place where he was on the verge of retiring and kind of changed his entire mindset around, and isn't this overly flashy guy that's always on SportsCenter, always talked about in baseball news. But the kind of person, the kind of individual he is, he has the ability to, and with what he's been through in his career, he's a mentor. He can help young players. And that his name will probably never be brought up as a type of guy like that outside of the clubhouse. So my point is there are mentors all over the game of baseball, and it doesn't just have to come from a big name player or a guy like Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander, whoever. You see what I'm saying? So, like, mentorship can come in all different shapes and sizes.
Yeah, the more I do this and the more I get access and learn and kind of talk to the people that are playing the games and shit, it's like the less likely I am to commit to that. Where before, man, that's a really big thing that people talk about, is like, well, they get this guy in there and he can do this and that, and that's why I pay all this money, because he's a leader. I think that's just a very quick and easy thing for baseball fans to go to justify stuff. And I think it's, the more I learn, it's like it is important, but you bring up great points. I hope that's hitting home with a lot of people, especially my Cubs fans that are like, oh, you got to pay for this and you got to do this, and this is, they're missing this leadership component. It's like, to me, it's like some of the best leadership is hitting a 3-run homer when your team needs it.
Yeah, and great point. You can lead by performance, and there's other guys that lead vocally. And if you can do both, you get the best of both worlds. And it's hard to quantify leadership, in certain ways, and you can't put it like there's not a stat, there's not a category for that. But I will say this: baseball, and you've seen it. Baseball got away from keeping those types of leaders in the game because they might be like a veteran, like fourth outfielder that teams didn't want to have to pay $6, $7, $8 million, but like a guy like John Jay, who was just pushed out of the game because teams were like, you know what, we're not going to pay you $4, $5, $6, $7 million for your services when we can just bring a guy from AAA and we think he can do what you did. But like I said, that unquantifiable category that John Jay was incredible at, you know, that you're missing out on that. You're missing out on what he can do for your young players. And you know, if guys like that can help escalate a player's career or get them ready a little bit sooner, which used to happen all the time, then the team's better for it. But teams kind of stop caring about it.
So you bring up John Jay, it brings me back. We talked just briefly about it. Benintendi going to the Yankees to me is very interesting because back when he was with Kansas City, obviously an all-star with Kansas City, you know, when he's at Kansas City, Benintendi's a guy where it's like, hey, Bobby Witt Jr.'s around here, you know, bringing up a Brother Ice kid, Michael Massey. Shout out Michael Massey from the south side of Chicago, just made it to the big leagues. But, like, you have these other, you know, like Whit Merrifield and stuff. Like, Benintendi's at the top of the hierarchy in that clubhouse. I would imagine if I'm Benintendi, I love going out to the Yankees. Yes, they're making me shave my facial hair, but instead of being, you know, like the 3-hitter and the kids, everybody's wearing your jersey and they're Andrew Benintendi. It's like, dude, you just get to go slide into a lineup that already has Aaron Judge and Rizzo. And, you know, when Stanton comes back and DJ LeMahieu telling you what he saw. DJ LeMahieu coming back after an at-bat and being like, hey, the glove does this on a slider or a changeup. Like, you just loaded with stud star power. If you're Benintendi, you got to be taking a deep breath. Being like, I know the pressure is more, but it's slide into your role, just do it. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm overreacting to this, but I feel like it's kind of a breather.
Well, I mean, you slide a guy like Benintendi in that lineup, and it's just such a great compliment to the pieces around him, and he instantly makes that lineup a little bit better, if that's even possible. And you take a guy like him out of Kansas City and you put him in New York with that lineup, dude, his stats are like instantly going to be better. Instantly, because of, you know, no offense to the Kansas City Royals, not a great team. So it gives him an opportunity. I mean, it would be like we've mentioned before with Nick Markakis. It's like taking him out of Baltimore and putting him in New York. You know what I mean?
Yep. And
Instantly
speaking of Baltimore, I think for the Orioles, like, I haven't heard a ton of talk about who they would buy. And I don't know. We talked before, like, if they get to this point, are you a buyer? I don't know if Baltimore necessarily to be a traditional buyer this year. Like, they could be a buyer just by bringing up some of their, like, top prospects and seeing kind of, like, who really sticks or who doesn't. Like, they don't necessarily have to go out and move anybody around to go get some major impact bat, because to me the Orioles are still playing with house money this year. It's kind of like the Cubs in 2015 with that squad where it was like, you guys could go out to the trade deadline and, like, you know, add something to help, but, like, it didn't make any sense at that point to, like, go all in because you guys are still capturing the momentum and seeing what you guys had to work. Is that an okay way to think about it? Or, like, if you're with the Orioles, like, what would you be doing?
Well, I think, you know, from a clubhouse standpoint, it would do wonders for those guys if the organization would bring in, like, you know, somebody that can, you know, perform at a high level and that's in, like, a veteran leadership type of role, not just a guy who, you know, who's played for a long, long time and can help mentor guys but doesn't perform all that well. If you bring in a guy who performs at a high level and also, like, has a reputation around baseball that the young guys can kind of latch onto, that says a lot to the players. And you don't have to make a monster move, but just bringing one piece in or maybe two pieces in that you don't have to give up a lot of stuff for. It's a boost. It's like bringing Josh Hader into the Padres. I mean, think about, you're sitting there in the clubhouse and you see on your phone that we just traded for Josh Hader. Or if you're in the Orioles clubhouse or you get a guy who you know makes your team better, it's a great feeling.
Yeah, I mean, you're like, I don't know, I'll relate to, like, being a young guy and you're at the party and it's like, like beers running down or whatever, and like the guy, your real good buddy shows up and he's like locked and loaded, a couple extra cases over his shoulder, and it's like, oh, we got that second win, like let's go. The night's still rolling.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a great night, great
Yeah.
season. All right, this has been probably our most densely packed, just like take after take, show after show. We do have one more. I want to dip my toes. I think the Red Sox should be sellers. I think the Blue Jays should be buyers. I think the Blue Jays also should get credit for like one of the great in-season first half managerial firings, because they've been red hot ever since. So credit to the Blue Jays for making a tough move when you have a loaded roster and then that roster bounces back. Whether or not they're buyers, I think it's clear that like nobody's catching the Yankees. So it is this kind of weird spot for the AL wildcard teams where it's like, the Blue Jays have what it takes right now to make it to the AL wildcard. It's just a question like, is that going to be good enough? Because it's getting to the wildcard, if you're a decision maker for the Blue Jays, are you giving up any of your capital when it's like, if you make it to the World Series, it's because Manoah is dominating, Gossman's dominating, and the guys you already have are studs. So it's just such a tough decision. Again, you're playing their ceiling is the wild card, so they don't need a move to put them above to get the wild card. But then it's like you make a move so that you could do it in the playoffs. But
yeah, again, like I can't stress enough how much it means to a clubhouse. Like when you're sitting there near the deadline. It goes both ways. When you're sitting there at the deadline, you're like, man, I hope we're buyers. I hope we bring somebody in. And then it doesn't happen. It's kind of a letdown. And then, when you're sitting there and the opposite happens and you bring a guy in that can help you, like that just changes things. And Toronto's, they're 3 games up on the first wild card. And, but they have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. They got 5 teams behind them that are fighting, for that next spot. And it's not impossible that they get jumped by a hot team that goes, like we talked about, wins 10 in a row or goes 8 out of 10 and they go, 4-6 or 3-7. Things can happen extremely quickly in a 2-week span.
Yeah. It's great insight, man. Thank you. I personally, I need this type of stuff because this is, again, it's an exciting time.
It can be a letdown.
Baseball fans, yeah.
It can be a total letdown to like, we'd all be sitting there like on trade rumors, MLBTradeRumors.com, and trying to figure shit out because, the front office isn't going to tell the players, what's going on behind the scenes. We know that they're in meetings and the phones are ringing off the hook, nonstop, when we're at the field early before the game and even as the game starts. So, it's just it's a nerve-wracking time. It's an exciting time, but then it can also be a letdown. If you're in a position to, get into a wild card and you don't see the team make a move, it can be a letdown.
Yeah, I actually thoroughly enjoy the fact that the players kind of and the fans are on the same wavelength of emotions where it's like, yeah, you guys want to see a move, you're disappointed if you don't. And I think this could hopefully some people listening bridge the gap between like players and fans because for me, it's players and fans are much closer than it's like the fans and the owners. Like people are always so ready to go support the owner and be like, oh, those greedy players and stuff like that. But it warms me to know that like, dude, these guys are sitting around the clubhouse. They want to see a deal. They want to see
Absolutely.
better.
Yeah, we're in the same boat there. Like we are one and the same when it comes to trying to kind of play the trade deadline game. Like we're in the same boat. So we have that in common for sure.
So one of the biggest trades of my lifetime for sure. What was that like when Aroldis Chapman comes in the clubhouse and you're like, this dude throws 106? Like, not only do we have a closer, we have one of the best closers, and they got rid of like you didn't play with Gleyber at all, did you? No. Maybe in spring training.
Thankfully, the Cubs organization had so many high-profile prospects to give up to get guys like that. Like we had Soler, we had Eloy Jimenez, we had Gleyber Torres, we had Javi Baez. Like, does it even make sense that we had all those guys? And then we brought over Addison Russell, from Oakland, and that didn't necessarily work out. But when we brought in Chapman, it's like, oh shit, man! Like here we go, and that's one of those situations that I'm talking about. When you make that sort of move, it's just like instant adrenaline. Energy is like through the roof. It's like, all right, boys, now we go. We're already a really, really good team, obviously, but bringing in Chapman, it's like now we're winning this thing. We almost lost it, but I mean, it was just an amazing feeling, and we abused him. I mean, we absolutely abused Chapman. I think he threw back-to-back nights, multiple times, multiple innings. I think he went like 2 2/3 or 2 1/3 multiple times. But fortunately, he was able to do that, and physically, he's another one of those guys. It's like, what is that? I didn't even know humans could look that way, be that big, and still be as mobile as he is. Just a special player.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable at some points towards the end of the season just watching Joe be like, yep, Chappie.
Yep, lefty.
Boop.
Lefty. Mm-hmm. Bringing the missile. And thank God he could do it.
Okay, the biggest trade deadline acquisition of the year comes tonight, Tuesday night. Jacob deGrom is rejoining the Mets. They didn't have to trade anybody, and they're getting the most talent. I love watching Scherzer compete, and I was thinking about we'll do this another time, but the Scherzer and the Verlander comparison is just perfect to me. But you could say Scherzer, Verlander, Strasburg when he's healthy, and DeGrom is just as far as pure talent, gorgeous watching him pitch. The stuff's electric. Where do you see this DeGrom return kind of lining up with the Mets playing as well as they have? They're 6-2 since the All-Star break. They lost their first 2 out of the All-Star. Oh, are the Mets slowing down? Nope, 1-6 in a row. So
no, the Mets are just fine, and having a healthy Scherzer, a healthy DeGrom, it just basically all but captures that division for the Mets. And I know Colin does too. Pray for his health, not only for Colin's sake, but just for baseball's sake. And I want to see that guy out there every 5 days, as I know all baseball fans do. And there's not much like it. And Scherzer is who Scherzer is. He's a Hall of Famer, but it's like the effort level for DeGrom is so much. It seems so much lower than for Scherzer's like max effort and grunt and motherfucking guys out there under his breath, which is beautiful. But it's like it's like the game looks easy for Jacob deGrom. It just does. It's a beautiful thing. It's like poetry in motion. And I'm sucking the guy off extremely hard. I always do. But I just pray for his health.
Yeah, I think you certainly have an understanding of one thing you always talk about with pitching is like the consistency and being able to repeat your delivery. I knew that was a big thing that you had to work on, is like, how do I get to a spot where I can just have the same thing to repeat, get to a point where I could feel command. If you make a mistake, you come back the next pitch, make your adjustments pitch to pitch. And to that point, it's like to have – I've always thought of pitching as like that balance of repeatability and consistency, and then like I want to max, gas it up, juice it, and all this stuff. And DeGrom has really like found this perfect equilibrium of like he has just such compact, repeatable, smooth, consistent delivery. But what you're getting out of that is max effort stuff. Is just clean max effort, high octane stuff, which is just crazy, man.
Yeah, and he talked about in spring training how he felt like he was finally starting to like dial in his delivery to the point where it's almost perfect. And I don't think there really are perfect mechanics. It's just what works for you and what allows you to get to that same release point time after time after time. And I would always look at Roy Halladay's pitch FX and how basically every pitch he threw was coming out of this little window right out of his hand, whether it was a cutter, it was a splitter, it was a fastball. It all came out of that same little window. And how can you land, whether you're a righty, how can you land that left foot in the same spot every time? If you're left-handed, right foot, same spot every time. Those consistencies in your delivery lead to consistent, command and consistent stuff. And DeGrom, whatever he's done over the past 7 or 8 years to get that increase in velocity year after year, I mean, he's like a unicorn. Maybe there's a couple guys historically that have done that, but usually it goes the opposite. Guys throw incredibly hard, when they're younger and they slowly lose velocity as they get older. That's how I was. So to see a guy be able to do it the way DeGrom does, it's special.
So from a body type comparison, I'd say it's almost like he's not the most physically impressive. It's the skill and the technique, and just like I can't imagine him doing something otherwise. So like a couple comparisons that come to mind would be like, a Steph Curry or a Damian Lillard, like guys where it's like it's just so fluid and beautiful to watch them play basketball. Or, from like a running back perspective where it was like, maybe this is a bad one, but like when Le'Veon Bell, like you just couldn't touch him. Like it just naturally, like you just see the way that they like move around the field. You just know it's different. Like it's different when Jacob deGrom is pitching, because if you wanted to like map out great, I know he's hurt, so it sucks, but like Clemens was the guy that they went to in his generation where it's like this guy's got just like flawless mechanics that generates the most out of what he's putting into it. Maybe DeGrom's generating too much torque for the elbow. Like that's a problem. It's like you don't need to throw 101. Like you could just get by at 96 with runs. So Colin's nodding in his head like, please stop getting injured, Jacob.
What's unique about him is I don't think he's applying as much effort as people think. I think that's just how fast the ball's coming out of his hand based on his movement patterns. Does that make sense? And his ability to his mobility, his external and his internal mobility, his hip mobility. Because throwing a baseball hard is all about how much you can separate your hips from your shoulders, and then get into that point right before release where you can uncoil all of that separation. It's just like golf, right? You see those small guys that are 5'7" that can hit the ball 340 yards. Why is it? It's because their hips and their shoulders are separated more than others, and then they can uncoil that very, very efficiently.
Now you got me thinking I got to work on my swing. You
got to work on your mobility, and so do I. I'm just the shoulder mobility is starting to go. It's like before I throw BP now for the kids, like I got to fire like 10, 15 balls into the net, or else I'm going to hit somebody in the ribs. But hey, like Lackey always said, I'm not a pitching machine. Heads up.
Not here for a haircut.
No.
Okay, I got one last thing. I want to make some predictions here. I think I want your take. I don't think Ohtani gets traded because I don't think Angels ownership trusts their front office to make that decision. But I do think Ohtani gets moved in the next window, either in the offseason because the Angels are going to wave a white flag, or he gets moved to the next trade deadline. And then I think Juan Soto gets traded, and I think Juan Soto ends up going to the Cardinals. Just because I think he's going to kill me the rest of my life. Like we got rid of Josh Hader today. Don't worry, Carl, because here comes Juan Soto right behind him.
I love Soto in St. Louis. I like Soto in San Diego. I'd prefer to not see him in L.A. or in New York. I think that those teams have plenty. And for the state of the game, I think it's better for baseball to see Soto either in San Diego or in St. Louis. Would you agree with that? It's like I'm just kind of tired of seeing all these guys go to New York and to the Dodgers. And it's nothing against those teams. I love the Dodgers and I love the Yankees. Big fan of the organizations. But as far as for the betterment of the game of baseball, I think St. Louis or San Diego Padres is a better move.
And as much as it pains me to say, like, as a national objective baseball guy, it is better that the St. Louis Cardinals get Juan Soto, because that would just be crazy to see Arenado, Goldschmidt, and Soto hit 3-4-5 or 2-3-4 together. Like, yeah. That's better than an all-star game, 2-3-4.
Yeah. Like, what are the Reds and the Pirates and the Cubs saying after that? It's like, yes, you can slowly rebuild the team and then, kind of lie in the bushes waiting to make your move. But how much bigger do those moves need to be if a guy like Soto comes into your division?
And this might be a little inside baseball joke, but the difference between these teams would be like, no disrespect to the Texas Collegiate League or like the Kansas Collegiate League, but that'd be like running the Cape. Like the difference between these teams, you're getting to the point where it's like the Cape. Yeah, it's like, yeah, here's the Cape, and then here's the local Chicago, Collegiate League. Ugh.
That's what it is. We went to watch. So Vandergrift is the high school that my kids will go to, and Westlake is like, it's like the big, it's like almost like a college team playing high school teams. So it's where Drew Brees went, and Nick Foles went to Westlake. And they recruit. They bring guys in, and more power to them. I mean, I think they won a national championship. They played Vandergrift in the quarterfinals or the semifinals, and it was 55-0 at halftime. And the final score, and Vandergrift's a good football team. I think the final score was 77-7, and only because they took, a bunch of their starters out of the game. Their starting quarterback ended up going to Clemson. Both of their defensive ends went to big Division I schools. It's just hard to compete with that, but that's kind of what it's like. It's like, Westlake, Vandergrift, St. Louis, and then some of these other teams if they end up getting Soto.
And I think, at least for me, I'd like to see Soto outside of the Nationals. That's kind of where he ends up. But I would like to see him move from the Nationals if the Nationals are going to be in a rebuild mode where they're not going to be effective until like 2025-ish. There's nothing for me. I'm getting to the point, like, we've wasted Mike Trout's career. Like, a guy like Soto, we've seen what he can do in the playoffs. Like, that guy should be in October on a contender, knocking on the door. That's where he deserves to be. And so hopefully he can be in that position. It just makes it a better game. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I do want to
Yeah. So, Scott Boras has an incredible relationship with Mark Lerner, the Nationals owner, and Rizzo, the GM. But I think that it's ran its course with Soto in Washington. And I think that's a good thing. I think a lot of people would love to see him, obviously, in their team's uniform. But baseball fans, I'm very, very certain that most baseball fans, even if he doesn't end up on their team, they want to see him in a different uniform.
Amen. I have two issuances here. One is a clarification. The first, we were talking about Josh Hader and like Cooperstown stuff. I really do think if he keeps up this strikeout per 9 and he continues to be like a Don, I know he's trending runs against and stuff like that. And so I just think he's at a point. I'm not saying he is a Hall of Famer earlier. I just want to issue like some kind of clarification that should he pitch at his like best level that he's shown he can for a number of continuous seasons, then he would thus become one of those guys where you'd say, yeah, he is of Hall of Fame caliber. I'm not saying right now Josh Hader's a Hall of Famer. He's going to a Hall of Fame or putting that on him. I'm just saying he's shown that. That was the one clarification. The other is an apology to Guardians fans because I said Jose Ramirez could have been. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever said in my entire life, and I just want that on record that I said that, and that's a stupid thing. And sometimes words come out of your mouth faster than you can process them, at least for me, and that was a stupid thing. So I just want to get in front of that. Sometimes you say dumb stuff. That was a dumb thing.
You made a mistake.
You
made a mistake. You addressed it. You apologize. You're forgiven. But and with Hader, yeah, I mean, he's having a down year ERA-wise. He's giving up more runs than he'd like. His strikeout numbers are fine. I mean, you look at Craig Kimbrell, right? He's a bona fide Hall of Famer. I don't think anybody would argue that. He's had a bad year or two, right? But then he bounced right back. He's didn't pitch all that well. Well, overall last year he had a 2.2. This year he's got a 4.2. But look, I mean, he's in his 13th year or 14th year. I mean, at some point, things start to go downhill, unfortunately.
So we're wrapping up the show. I want to thank everybody for tuning into our trade deadline coverage. Some housekeeping notes. We want to draw attention to our behind-the-scenes red carpet video on our YouTube page. If you're watching this podcast, you've probably already seen the red carpet video. We ask you guys to unsubscribe. How about this time you guys send the link? Text a buddy, send it to an uncle. Not everybody's up to date on baseball media this time of year because it's high season for summer vacations and stuff. But we're grinding here to put good content out there. Don't be bashful. Share it with your friends. Yeah, check it out. We had a blast out there. We talked to some really interesting people other than, players, which I think people like to see also. And we had a blast doing it. And I think that's something that we'll obviously do every year now. I look forward to, the All-Star game next year already being in Seattle. And I need to get an Ichiro card signed. So I don't know if Ichiro will even see this, but I'm going to reach out to you, Ichiro, and I need you to sign my card. Thank you so much. Get the word out. We will. I can't wait for the sit down with Ichiro. I'm sure that's coming. Maybe we'll do it at your new house. Yeah. Congratulations. And he's a very well dressed man. He takes his style very seriously.
Yeah, so kudos to Ichiro. I don't know if he's got a stylist or not. Maybe that's just like, in Japan, and Darvish, I was surprised. He wasn't as flashy as I thought he'd be. I thought that they were, because he was on, all the covers are like kind of GQ in Japan, and he's a mega star there. I think he's just more like, more casual, more laid back. I thought I'd seen him in leather shoes like every single day.
I got an Ichiro story for you quick. My buddy, a good friend from home and neighborhood, like a guy I go to Vegas with, we'll say that, play golf with, broke spring training camp made the big league club back in like 2013, 14. His name's Dean Anna, went to John Logan Community College, played at Ball State, and then was like a career AAA guy with the Cardinals and stuff. And he got an opportunity at the Yankees. He broke camp with the Yankees. It was Jeter's last season, and Ichiro's playing right field. And he gets invited to Major League Spring Training Camp as like a non-40-man, like minor league guy. And he ends up earning a spot on the roster, breaks camp with him in the 25, starting second baseman. Had his cup of coffee for 6 weeks or whatever. But that spring training, he says that like one of the guys he got closest with was Ichiro. And he said that the pranks and how funny and just an all-time kind of classic goofball, funny teammate. But what stands out most would be like after they'd get done, Ichiro, all he wanted to do was go play pool. So my buddy would yeah, I'll go play pool with you. And so he had his own case, and he had his own pool, and he was really serious about going to the pool hall and then bringing guys in from the Yankees, and just all he wanted to do was play pool. And I love that about him.
Wouldn't you expect Ichiro, a guy like that, to have his own case and probably his own chalk and the glove that they use, so the pool cue slides between the fingers well. And I bet the English he can put on that on the cue ball is just absurd. Doesn't surprise me. I mean, great story. Maybe we do a little interview with Ichiro around, in a pool hall or something like that.
Yeah,
throw some money on the line.
Billiards
episode.
Something.
Yeah. Yeah. Billiards barstool. I like that.
This has been a fun show. Congrats
It's a good
on
show,
moving.
Man.
Congrats on the move. I actually feel happy to see the backdrop for you, because I know firsthand how much you've been waiting to move into this house.
4 years, man. 4 years in the waiting. I've got the sauna behind me at 194 degrees, so I'm about to hop in this after we get off.
Amen, brother. All right, we'll go get in that sauna. Colin, can we get a Mets? Do you have like a Mets update as we're getting? I feel bad. We did some Mets talk. What do we got?
No, I mean, nothing huge update. Like you said, the team's rolling a little bit. This is finally crunch time here. We're getting a little taste of Scherzer yesterday and DeGrom tonight, so it'll be the nice back-to-back that we've been waiting on. I just wanted to say earlier, like Jake says, like how easy everything is for DeGrom. One of my favorite things about him is his warm-up song is Simple Man by Leonard Skinner. And I haven't heard that in so long because he hasn't pitched in forever, but I'm excited to be back at Citi Field. He's pitching against the Braves on Sunday. And, like, it just describes him and his release and everything, like Jake said, perfectly. Like, watching him warm up to Simple Man, chef's kiss, baby.
It's amazing. And Simple Man was the first dance with my mom at my wedding. So, amazing song. Shout out to Leonard Skinner.
Wow. That was awesome. What a moment for the show. Good luck to the Mets. Good luck to Colin. Stay healthy, Jacob deGrom. This is Starting Nine. You guys just heard from Colin. He's busting his butt on these videos. Go check out our YouTube page. There's some great content there. Share this week's episode. Like, subscribe, unsubscribe, all that great shit. Next time we'll be back. We'll be with the number one pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks, Zach Gallen, for what I would describe as a very laid-back, cool interview.
Great show, boys and everybody. Thanks for listening.
All right, we'll talk soon, boys.